Hello, everyone. It's Jason Grant, and today I have a very, very special guest with me, Toni Casserly from Culture Project, which is interplanetary governance on blockchain. Super important topic, super interesting stuff. And as usual, I'm not going to be introducing Toni Lane. I'm going to let her introduce herself, please.
Hi. So my name is Toni Casserly. I've been in the blockchain industry since 2011. I co-founded Cointelegraph, which is the media group with all of the cartoons. And since then have been spending the last 5 years working on one of the biggest problems the blockchain is meant to tackle, which fundamentally is elimination of middlemen for financial institutions and government. So I am working on creating ubiquitous access to human rights for beings around the world, and fundamentally asking the core question, which is, what would our world look like if instead of using systems like government or corporations to structure the world, what if the world was structured around the principle of culture, of art and creation? So this is a core thesis running underneath our work, that the future of the creative economy will change the way that we self-organize. And we're just trying to build systems to give people greater opportunity in life, and also let people have more fun.
So this is like a modern piece of artwork today. We're streaming through Google Hangouts, and then Toni Lane is using the iPad camera or whatever it is, right? One of those things. So I have you like as some sort of art canvas, and then I've got a piece of art here and my daughter's little drum that she made in the school. So there's loads of art everywhere, music and everything. I have a little bit of a story to share from my end. I came to UK as a refugee from Bosnia, and now I'm consulting to UK government in amongst other clients on policy, believe it or not. So tell us a little bit about the policy on blockchain and how you're approaching this whole thing of this sort of new age governance.
Yeah. So I think that when we look at blockchain from a policy perspective of the way we're talking about governments, a lot of people look at these systems and they're like, you know what doesn't work? You know what doesn't work? When you walk up to someone that you're essentially either you either want to work with them or you're doing something else, and you just kick them right in the crotch. It usually doesn't go over that well. So a lot of people who approach these systems approach them with an attitude. I don't believe in the use of force, violence, and coercion. I believe that we're going to accomplish change through peace. And if we don't accomplish change through peace, then it's going to be animal farm. And that's the last thing we want. We don't want to replace farmers with pigs, fundamentally. So it's a situation where I look at building technology, and it's not just me, right? It's not like I look at building technology. It's that we're all being called to do this work. And the answers that have come to me personally, I'm an abstract thinker, so I work very well at this kind of taking a conception and distilling it into a series of action steps to make reality real. Why aren't we helping the institutions who we're trying to change, instead of trying to say that they're wrong about everything and we hate them? Don't look at these institutions like they're this evil dinosaur that's trying to destroy the human race, because they're not. It's your grandma, okay? Systems that have been active and that have been trying to maintain human population for years, even though they've been broken for the last 50 years, printing more death than they have wealth. You're not just going to walk up to your grandma and kick her in the shins and push her on the ground and say thanks for all the stuff, grandma. I don't know, maybe some kids are, but that's don't do that to your grandma. It's about hospice and saying you've been around for this long, you're crotchety and old, and the world has changed, and you don't understand how the world has changed, and you're 30 years behind, and trying to use an iPhone is frustrating for you. So give people tools that they need to solve meaningful problems, and then the change will happen naturally. I said before, actually, since I've been saying this since 2011, that there's really two ways that change happens. Change happens through time, or change happens through chaos. And I think given the choice, we would all rather have change happen through a process of time and mutual growth, peaceful evolution towards change, rather than change as a process of an ultimate destruction, because you're going to lose a lot fewer lives this way. And I think that's the most important thing at the end of the day. That's we're doing this work to help people. And so I believe that if you're uniting on the purpose of helping people, you need to be logically consistent in the way that you look at the idea of helping human life to grow. Helping human life to grow doesn't mean helping one group of people to grow at the expense of another people who have made their livelihood off of working into a system, right? It doesn't mean that you're sacrificing human life over here to help human life over here. That's the exact kind of logical inconsistency that has led to a lot of violence. So we're actually looking at giving tools to old systems to help them gain information about, help them essentially have access to an open source research and development institution that can give people who are really sovereign, living without a nation, the ability to take ownership over their identity in a fundamentally different way. And this is a process that's been stewarded by communities for years and years and years. This isn't my work. None of this work is my work, right? I just have a certain set of skills, and my set of skills are to carry the message. And so this work has been in process for a really long time, and just really excited to see. It looks as though we're finally at the place where it's the right time, and timing is everything in this world.
Toni Lane, have you come across integral theory?
Tell me more. I mean, yes, but I would never sacrifice an opportunity to learn.
No, it's just that in integral theory, I'll just put you on mute while I'm speaking because I get feedback. So in integral theory, there is a concept of transcend and include, and it integrates the spiral dynamics, which is evolution of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as well as talking about how that applies to what they call the quadrant, which is the I, myself, we as a culture, as a society, it as the objects, and it's as the system of objects. And so every human person goes through 8 levels of evolution, which is instinctive, magic, power, rule role, which is where you're operating in and where the governments operate in. Then there is a rational superachiever, sensitive, level 6, green, integral, which is why our company is called Integral, and then holistic or cosmocentric. Integral is planetary centric and holistic cosmocentric. So it's just super cool to hear that you are talking about not killing your grandma, but basically transcending and including her and honoring her as a sort of evolutionary participant in sort of where we got to. So tell us a little bit about the purpose of culture, and please unmute yourself now.
There you go. I love my grandma. So yeah, so culture is essentially the idea that the future of government is culture, and that the way that we will self-organize in a creative economy will be based on principles of artistic integrity, as opposed to fulfilling a function within a machine. And in order for us to do that, it really means being the most effective at playing well with others and being people's friends, because life is really short. And at the end of the day, you know, Darwin didn't actually say survival of the fittest in the way that it's interpreted. Darwin is one of the most, I honestly feel Darwin, where a lot of people who have feedback or criticism for his theory have never read his work. And I'm not saying, listen, like theory and implementation, very, very different things. But it's, you know, he didn't say survival of the fittest in the way it's interpreted. What Darwin actually said, and in one of his texts, is that human beings, or species, with the highest potential for and capacity for sympathy, qualities we now identify as altruism, empathy, reciprocity, and compassion, that these will be the most likely to survive during times of hardship. I think that's important for us to remember when we think about any systems design of the future, and that those qualities in and of themselves have the ability to inherently breed greater creative provision. And I think that kind of an inertia can create more powerful inertia in terms of accelerating a vision, growing exponentially, and entering into what we call like this upward spiral. So culture as a foundation layer is the ability for people to own ubiquitous access to human rights, without the idea of geographic ownership tying people to a legal system that may not have any form of their personal rights interest at heart. So what that means is, if you are someone who is, you know, LGBTQIA+, and you are living in a community and environment where your life could be threatened for the way that you identify, for loving the person that you want to love, that you actually have the ability to register your marriage outside of the bounds of a traditional nation state. And you can own those rights, you can have them verified by your friends and your community, and you can come together under what is a global legal jurisdiction without the use of force, violence, and coercion against members of your community to own access to your rights, albeit anonymously. However, it's still access, right? And if you give access, that's really the first step to greater opportunity and greater change. And there's so much repressed potential on this planet that if we just invested a little bit in control, a little bit in what people could do, I think we're going to be amazed to see what this world is going to be able to become. And the empathy machine is not something that's created by our work alone. It's just something I think we've really tuned into and really take to heart. So that's layer one of what we're working on. And layer two is really the ability for anyone to come together once they own this access to their identity or their property through a series of different services and providers and open source standards or private enterprises, the ability for people to participate meaningfully in different communities. So it's the idea that your identity is this little wheel, and you can see who am I subjectively and objectively, what communities do I belong to, and what are my skills. And in understanding that, you're also able to see here are the communities that I participate in, and here's what I bring to all of these different communities dynamically. If you even look at our logo, it's that infrastructure design that your identity is this one small piece at the center, and around this you have this really dynamic fractal flora that is your participation in the world around you and these different cultures, some of which will be blockchain-based cultures with their own economies, some of them will be private enterprises, but the ability for you to have overlap in your networks and for other people to see meaningfully how you're able to contribute to the communities around you and to the world at large through your work. And in that way, I think that we are able to build an infrastructure that actually fundamentally connects us to people that we can participate and build and play with and create with and share with and grow with, that are not only aligned with our purpose, but with our principle. And I think that's how we start to have greater acceleration in the way we think about the process of innovation in groups.
Amazing stuff. Have you come across the concept of holacracy in management? They've been talking about this. Would it be fair to say that culture in some ways is like codified holacracy?
In a sense, so every business that I've built is a holacracy and runs as a holacracy. I think there are some challenges in that. I'd say that rather than being holacracy, because yes, I think in principle it's a holacracy, but it's more a movement, and it's more about the idea of sovereignty. And within that spectrum of sovereignty, enabling people to reach their full creative potential. I'd say it's more like a community. And what I'm really trying to build is more a culture that's like a tribe, a family. And that being beyond just the principle of holacracy. A lot of holacracy is, it's another one of those ideas that the theory and the implementation are really different things. And for us, it's more about the idea of community consensus and just contribution. I'd say our organization is more like Burning Man in some ways. And that's the principle. There's a lot of the principle set in the thesis that is running underneath our work, or like the organization of First Nations, where we essentially have a council of elders who come together to offer their wisdom on what, how something should be resolved or the way that things should work. And so it's really about the process of seeking, like people say they have like advisors to their company, but it's really more for us about seeking guidance from counsel and learning from people that are more experienced. So I would say the model that we are working with is, rather than saying it's a holacracy, I'd say that the model we build is more about flexibility and trying to figure out what works and understanding that if one person leaves a culture, that culture might shift dynamically, right? A culture is not only the idea of the arts, but it's also the idea that we're creating this petri dish. And from within that petri dish, when you have certain conditions for life, certain elements will thrive. changing one condition could change the way that life would thrive within that culture. And so for us, it's really more than anything a process of play and experimentation, because the last thing that I am under the impression of is that I have the answers, right? I don't think any of us know what's going to work. And so I'm approaching all of this with the understanding that this project is for all of us, about learning, learning what does work for different groups and being able to give people the tools to experiment and play effectively, so we can have a broader spectrum of not only knowledge, right? Knowledge is one thing, but insight is powerful.
So many of us have come across this realization in the last year or so that we seem to have spent like 10 to 20 years of our lives seemingly learning about things that seem to have zero value whatsoever, like arts and crafts and music and all sorts of things that don't seem to have any relevance. And then suddenly with blockchain, everything is somehow sprung into one sense-making unified whole. So tell us a little bit more about both sort of your background and how you came into this, and how you're seeing seemingly disparately irrelevant things now suddenly becoming very relevant for culture.
I don't know if I would ever say that music is an irrelevant skill. I would never say that. I would never recommend that art is an irrelevant skill. I would say, in fact, I am really disturbed by the number of people who want to promote STEAM or STEM programs. And the reason why is that it is not a STEAM program. If you are promoting the idea of STEM without including STEAM, then you are actually sacrificing like half of your brain and capacity. And it is really, okay, I'm going to say something. I'm sorry that this is severe, but I'm really going to say it. I'm sorry that this is severe, but I'm really going to say it because I feel this strongly about it. Do you know what Adolf Hitler actually wanted to be? You know what his childhood dream was?
I'm not sure. Go on.
He wanted to be an artist. He wanted to be an artist. And his dad told him that he would never be an artist, and that he was a terrible artist, and that he was a failure, and essentially just beat him up and held him down and made him hate himself. He still believed in himself. And he actually applied to go to art school, and he wasn't admitted, and he didn't get in. And he literally, from that moment, that was the full crushing realization that he wasn't an artist, or that he felt like he wasn't good enough, and all of the hate that he was taught to believe in himself was real. And when someone learns a lesson like that, it has some really negative repercussions. So I think kind of the opposite. I think art is one of the most valuable skills that you can learn. And I think when we start stifling people's creativity, that repression has a cascading effect. Creative repression and artistic repression creates other forms of repression, and that affects people's actions in the real world. And sometimes those actions have really serious and extremely dangerous repercussions. But if we encourage creative liberty is legitimately a form of liberation. And without creative liberation, there are other forms of oppression that exist as side effects. So I think those skills are extremely valuable. And I think the minute that we stop teaching them to kids in school is the minute that we start losing our ability to innovate meaningfully. Art is so incredibly important. It is a fundamental, it is a foundation of human life. Our ability to tune into creation is a foundation of human life. So I feel that's something I feel really, really strongly about. It's incredibly important, and I don't think that we can sacrifice. It's not even funding, right? It's giving people access to this opportunity, because you may not realize that you learning this like random Eastern scale 10 years ago is actually the solution that you need to like discover a new particle, because all of these things are connected, and artistic knowledge is a form of knowledge, and art and science are more closely linked than I think a lot of people give them credit for.
And at Integral, we spend quite a lot of time thinking through the evolution of human consciousness, what happens when we're fully self-realized humans, and when we've kind of automated everything, what do we do then? And the answer always ends up being that we go back to what our primordial form of being and thinking is, which is to express ourselves, to be creators on the earth, and create things in sonic, visual, physical formats, all sorts of things. And eventually, when I wander around Tate Modern Gallery in London, I realize that there is a lot of convergence going on between art and engineering. Where like artists are creating these engineering structures, like a giant spider that's been welded from steel frames. And engineers are more and more wanting to be more artistic because they understand that things that are beautiful and more expressive sell better and people want to use them more. So these things are converging, and perhaps that's one of the biggest convergences happening out there. So tell us a little bit more about where is the culture project at the moment, and what your sort of plan is for next, bunch of months.
Yeah. So yeah, and I agree with you about this, especially with Tate Modern, and I also want to say that there are a lot of people who have actually used art. Another huge issue that we're struggling with around the world today is, and I don't like this word because it's not the right word. Like people say it's mental illness, but it's trauma. And we're not going to have world peace outside of ourselves. We do not first think within ourselves. And door opener for so many people that have struggled with kind of depression, or whether it's a chemical, it might be a chemical imbalance, and it might just be a hiding of a trauma that's creating the imbalance. It might just be something completely other. You might not have a certain, you might not generate a certain kind of acid or chemical in your fingernails, and that might cause you to have certain forms of depression. Like there are many different things that can cause this, but art is so important for human happiness, health, and well-being as well. And this is an issue that I think we're addressing by pumping people full of drugs from a pharmaceutical system that is built to cure a symptom and not to cure a disease. And we have to change this paradigm because it is not sustainable for the evolution of human life, and it is not following any basic principle of what would be a general and rational humanity. We as a human race, human beings are a special form of life. We still have such a far ways to go as a life form and as a consciousness to be forward, to be even an iota, to be even at an iota of the level of evolution that we should be at. So the Culture Project right now is essentially, we just have many people that are reaching out to us from all corners of the world that want to contribute, whether it's through creating art for us or helping us manage or helping us write and create content or creating videos. It's a movement. And this is what I mean, that this isn't me, this is so far beyond me because it's all of us. So bringing people in who, we work with indigenous nations as well. So one of our core founders, Chief Phil Lane, he's the leader of the Dakota, the Chickasaw, also of the Wakpala. So the Wakpala are a community that have been absolutely instrumental in Standing Rock. And they're just, it's seeing the work that is being done and also seeing just the level of, how much a person makes living at Standing Rock a year? Family of four. $4,000, maybe $5,000 for a family of four a year. That in and of itself that's below poverty. That in and of itself is a rights crisis that's literally happening in our backyard. So we are working with a lot of these nations to help them own their rights. And in addition to helping people own their rights, create greater freedom for all, and actually create global trade agreements that are based on principles of stewardship and environmental regeneration. So if you would like to participate in an agreement with a nation who respects the earth, to gain access to participate in that trade agreement, you must first regenerate the ocean, you must first steward the fish, you must first make sure that the conditions are such that we will be able to continue to create and grow life healthily on this earth. And in stewarding the earth, you gain access to its resources. There's a huge incentive shift that has to happen for this movement to work. So right now we're bringing especially more engineers. We're bringing on more engineers to help us actually build this work. We're just in this process of if we are an egg, we are currently in incubation. And the more just remarkable talent we can have from across the world who understand the principles of this vision and the mission, the more people we can have contributing to this, I think the stronger the movement is overall. So we're very open and very, very happy and very fortunate to have the people working around us that we have been calling in and are always looking for more people to contribute, and for investors who are value aligned to get involved in our project in a way that is beyond capital, but also increasing the network effect of what this movement is.
One of the things that I'd love to share very publicly with you is that it's very hard for me to come across people that are truly inspiring and inspirational, like all round. Often I find people who are inspirational in one aspect, but with you, you're just inspirational in so many different ways. So, I just have to share that very openly with you. And I find myself that really the future of humanity is one led by people much more like yourself, who are multi-talented polymaths who really understand very broad range of subject matters at different levels of existence, who can integrate them, digest them, and actually then take those kind of very intense steps to reflect that into the rest of the fabric of the universe. So, it's super inspirational to be chatting to you and to, understand and see in practical conversation that, you are really as smart in real world rapid conversation like this, that's completely unrehearsed, as you were in your Singularity University presentation about blockchain. So, tap yourself on the back for that. I don't really praise people like this, especially not in public, every day. So tell us then, how can people get involved in Culture Project? What's the best way to get involved? Maybe not right now if it's still too early, or even right now, but certainly going forward.
So you can reach out to me individually on Telegram, Twitter, and Instagram. I have the same handle. It's at Toni with an I, Lane, Lanec. You can also join our Telegram channel, which is T. By the way, thank you so much. Thank you. That is so incredibly kind. I know. Thank you. Our Telegram channel is t.me/cultureisfuture. And you're also welcome to reach out to me at tlc@cultu.re. And our website is just that. It's the word culture, cultu.re. So those are probably the easiest ways for people to start getting involved. But I think one of the other really big ways that I would love to see people get involved in this movement is to start leading with your heart in whatever you do. It's not just about what we're doing. It's the work that we're doing, yes, but lead with your heart. Take care of the people around you. Approach life with an attitude of service. Be grateful. Wake up every morning and be grateful, because every day really is the best day of your life if you want it to be. No matter where you're at and no matter how hard it is, know that there are people out there who love you, even if you haven't met them, and who are looking out for you. And those communities are just literally, they are waiting to find you. Those people are waiting to find you, and they are out there, and you're never alone. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's tuning in. Thank you to you for this opportunity. And would love to have more people get involved in our movement, but more importantly, we just love to see human life be happier and healthier and more free. So the best way for you to get involved is to take that and start living it for yourself.
One of my colleagues just sent me a comment and said, "She's a freaking alien." And I think that's a very, very succinct summary. Actually, it reminds me of a conversation I had with another friend who I said to, she's super smart person who is a little bit kind of, conserved, held back. And I said to her, okay, so what is, what is the issue here? And she said, well, she said something like, I'm an alien, I'm from another planet. And then in another separate part of the conversation, she said, we can only be saved by aliens. And I said, well, hold on, you're an alien, you're already, so save us, you are the leader that you've been waiting for, So yeah, my friend is very true, very right here. You're an absolute freaking alien, and the aliens that we're looking to save us from ourselves. So listen, thank you so much for joining this conversation, and let's have another one in like a couple of months time again to get an update and maybe some of the participation going on as well.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Bye.